Alberta's major industries, Industrial Power Consumers Association representing oil and gas, petrochemical, forestry, steel, cement, food processing, have determined that if the government goes ahead with this line, they sent an open letter to all the government MLAs on October 26. They urged them not to go ahead. They said it's going to triple our power rates, and it's going to, industrial power rates, and it's going to make Alberta uncompetitive and drive jobs out of this province. Do you think Cargill at High River and Excel at Brooks are going to be in business for long with triple power rates? I don't think so. They need to repeal Bill 36, or Bill 50, we should do 36 too, and reinstitute a proper needs assessment. The reliability study from AESO came out on December 13th, said the grid is stable, we have excess transmission capacity, excess generation capacity, even with the shutdown of Sundance's 1 and 2. Any technical expert that looks at this says this is a boondoggle of huge proportions and it must be stopped.
I'm going to steal 1 minute to go back to the Regional Advisory Council and just point out on the South Saskatchewan there were 5 ranchers and farmers and the head of the irrigation district, right? So the communities we care about were well represented there. And Keith is saying, oh, these terrible, it's going to be like Oregon, God almighty. Well, what does the South Saskatchewan RAC actually recommend? It recommends that the conservation areas be in those in the areas where you have the native grasslands, where the grazing leases are now. Okay, and then as Evan pointed out, the likelihood is those will be extended. So you're getting a reflection of precisely the community interest that you reflect there. And why is the RAC dissolved after they give their report? Because then it goes to the next consultation stage, which is public consultation, as I went through on the very first slide. Then the government does its draft plan. Then there's another round of consultation. The government goes back and finalizes the draft plan, and then it has to be tabled in the legislature. So there is a ton of consultation, and again, you can be sure, as long as Evan and I and the 32 other people that are rural landowners in our caucus, that your interests are going to be well represented on those RACs, well represented in caucus, and well represented in cabinet.
What about the power lines?
On Bill 50, it took the needs assessment away. It didn't take anything else from the AUC. It just said there is a need for these lines. The price has been jumped all over the place.
Prove to me!
The actual price, I can't tell you exactly where it is on the price, but I know that the needs assessment was the only thing that was waived. But also, as far as the landowners go, Bill 50 and the Statutes Amendment Act did increase through there to
You go broke if you run your business like that.
That's what I
Please
said.
just keep it down and let them answer.
There wasn't an answer.
Okay, next one, and I'm not sure if this is a statement or a question, but I will read it out and we will let these gentlemen answer. I am a landowner who also owns the freehold minerals under my land. Prior to Bill 24 being enacted, I did indeed own the pore space. The province never had any rights to that property. Bill 24 took my property without any compensation and without any recourse to due process of law. That is just a fact.
Bill 26 gave split title back to all landowners, but as far as Bill 24, if you have the freehold mineral rights, as Keith had explained earlier, that's accepting outright, Keith. It didn't affect those at all, as you had mentioned earlier. That pore space was not to the freehold mineral or the gas or oil below there. If you have that title, you still have that title.
The statement that was made by the person who posed the question is legally correct. He's obviously stating it from his perspective as a surface owner, and because the law has always been clear that the surface owner owns the pore space. A farmer pointed out to me, he said, oh, by the way, he said, don't think so deep down. He said, this starts from the surface and goes to the center of Earth. He says, Mr. Wilson, do you know where we put our fertilizer? In the pore space. Now, I certainly hope, and I'm almost feeling bad now that I alerted the government to this, it might give them some ideas. Maybe they can charge you rent if you want to fertilize your crop. But And I guess if they do that, you can blame me, and my apologies in advance. But the legislation is crystal clear. They did not consult us. Does anybody here who's a landowner recall getting consulted on as to whether or not they wanted to give their pore space to the government for free?
No.
Okay.
Okay, this is the last question. What cost controls has the government put in place to limit the amount AltaLink and ATCO can take for building a new Bill 50 transmission line?
I can answer this authoritatively. None. There's one thing they forgot to do when they amended Bill 50 through the Electric Statutes Amendment Act, was put in cost controls. And in fact, I could point you to an Edmonton Journal article. If you want to see it, go to actually any of my presentation and any other resource materials. Every document I referred to is available on a website that was prepared by a grassroots group that started off against power lines, or the Bill 50 lines. It's called landownersagainstbills.com. Just Google landowners against bills. And what you will find on that document, or on that website, is all kinds of information. But the AESO, which is a branch of Alberta Energy, and they try and say it's independent. I FOIP'd them, and the level of, it's interesting, Alberta Energy edits all of AESO's publications. That's how independent they are. But anyway, there are no cost controls. They are now putting in a tendering process for future Bill 50 lines. So the reason the Heartland line went from 280 million to 600 million overnight was simply because they could. And that's one of the major complaints that the major industries of this province, not Greenpeace, not a bunch of landowners who don't want it in their backyard, is the major industries, is that there's no cost controls. That was also found in the study done by the University of Calgary, School of Public Policy, and a research paper done by Dr. Jeffrey Church and some people from the engineering department. It was also a warning that the Fraser Institute did in a study that there are no cost controls. The government, in fact, admitted it in an Edmonton Journal article that was done by Darcy Henton as a reporter. There are no cost controls. The major industry groups are predicting that these 16 billion will hit 20 billion, and it will fundamentally change our economy, and we'll become uncompetitive, and my son is going to be living in the basement of my house for the rest of my life.
Now that's a scary thought.
Keith has been, I'd say, half right on a lot of the things he said tonight. But on politics, that's pretty good. You build off of the half-truth to get the result you want, but he's been wrong on two things, and this is one. The other thing, I'll just stick to this for the moment. There is something that was established called the Transmission Facility Cost Monitoring Committee. Let me repeat that. The Transmission Facility Cost Monitoring Committee. There is a committee that monitors costs. Keith, you're wrong.
Do they control it?
Okay.
One more question. Next election, when?
Sometime in the future? How's that? The next election will be sometime in the future. Actually, no. I'm wrong with that. Isn't it June 6th? The next election? Or May 2nd, right?
May 2nd.
Must be something going on June 6th. At any rate, it's late in the evening. And I would like to thank all of you for coming out. And a special thanks to Sharon Lemke and the Eckville Chamber of Commerce and the people of Eckville for hosting this. I hope you have found it informative. I hope you have got some of your questions answered, if not all of them. However, thank you, and drive safely.